Hey everyone, my name is Russell, or Russ, because nobody can say it. Peter even tried, it's not going to work. And this is my friend Peter Ciancarelly. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, everybody.
And Peter, you want to introduce yourself real quick before we start chatting a little?
Yeah, thank you, Russ, for having me on here. I really appreciate it, and I've loved the podcast you're doing. You've had some great conversations, and really appreciate everything you're doing. So my name is Peter Ciancarelly. Hi, everybody, and I run a popular Facebook group called Allie's Canine Cancer Crew, which started as a support for dogs with cancer, but it's really evolved into just everything proactive health and well-being, and some extreme alternative therapies on there that we'll hopefully talk about tonight. Big advocate for medical marijuana, CBD and THC for dogs from a health perspective, but also for the dogs that are really suffering with like severe separation anxiety or just situational stuff too. And I'd love to talk about that as well. And I'm also a part-time dog trainer. I have a lot of experience working for a very well-known dog trainer, and that's another big passion of mine is dog training. And I feel like I've really evolved from where I was just a couple years ago, and I would love to share a little bit about that as well. So looking forward to our talk.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about this one. So I know I know a little bit about your story just because I'm in your Facebook group. I don't get to hang out there as much as I like because I'm too busy to be on Facebook. But I know that a little bit of your story, basically it started with your own dog in terms of the health and the alternative medicine, we can call it, that it started with your own dog. How did that all play out?
Oh, man. Well, it was before I took her to this training facility where we worked on her behavior and overall state of mind through a balanced training approach, which I'm all for. But, she was just nobody believes me. I don't have any video proof that she was a very reactive dog and she's bitten me, and not with like true intent, but more of like just an objection. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
With their, and so, but it was all, she was just a nightmare, horrible separation anxiety, broken out of many wire crates. And then I spent $1,400 on a special aluminum crate from Learburg. And I thought that, she still tried to break out of it. In her mind, she could, and she chipped a couple of her two canines trying to break out. And she's used her mouth in the front door. And it's just the whole relationship, not just the training, but after the training program with her, the whole relationship in the true rehab probably took several years.
Wow.
Really building a solid relationship and really rehabbing her.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing it. I mean, I trust you, but I have a hard time believing it because she's so sweet and chill looking. Like even right before we went live, she's just so relaxed. But it shows a lot of the work that you put in with her, which is awesome. So what you're saying, like the journey didn't end after training. What do you mean by that? Like what went further that helped, that you saw change?
I mean, I think that so she would always be great for the trainers and for me in the training center. But coming back home to the environment where the original environment where she was, had these bad habits, it would be harder to. It was harder to change that mindset home, Yeah. So, and then also I really dove deep into the health side of things. A lot of immune system, a lot of gut trauma, a lot of an immune system imbalance, changing the diet. We'll get into all this as well, I hope, and really working on our health from the inside out. And I think that also is very connected to behavior. And so not just having the balanced training approach, the yes and the no, both are really important, but also, the health side is I feel like is equally as important, and that's why I believe I've been able to get the results I have with her is because of those two things.
Meaning you've seen changing up her health, and I'm sure there's a lot involved in that, but diet and things like that affecting her behavior and her state of mind as well.
Absolutely, because if you're eating, Cheerios for breakfast and dinner, or every day for the day in day out, how is that going to affect your state of mind? It's not. Right. It's not proper fuel. It's not real food. But at the same time, I also am fully aware that not everybody can feed raw. I do also have opinions on that, meaning like, you can exchange time for money. You can source it all yourself. Like I go down the road, I live in the woods. I go down the road to the gun club and I network with all the hunters and I get free venison, I feed her for free all winter long.
Some of us city folks don't have hunting clubs down the block.
I know, right? So you have to get more creative, but I mean, you can definitely do raw on a budget, but that's another topic. But I definitely feel like those were really important to changing her behavior too.
Yeah. And how did you discover all of this? Like, I'm assuming that you started off as the average pet owner who fed their dog kibble. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you go from that extreme to being this advocate of everything polar opposite?
Well, before she went in for her training, we did one-on-one training. She probably should have been a board and train. And today I'm not really as much of a fan of board and trains as I used to be. And I know you do board and trains. I still think they have value. But she got cancer in 2015 and it was a low-grade cancer. It hadn't spread or metastasized to any other tissues or parts of her body. So I got very lucky. But then I went down the rabbit hole of, someone told me about feeding raw. I put her on raw and it wasn't that smooth. I mean, she had a lot of gut issues and a lot of food intolerant sensitivities. So, for example, chicken is usually an easy transition protein when you're going from raw because it's bland, right. And poultry bones when raw are soft and pliable and can be crunched. If you know about raw, you know what I'm saying. But she was reacting to the corn, the GMO corn, and the feed that the chickens were eating and the stress that they were under in that factory farmed environment. So it was a lot trickier to transition her to raw and get her on fresh food because of the gut trauma that she had from years of overuse of antibiotics and pesticides. And, so it's a complicated story, but I tried to basically just was doing my research and I would just find out one thing after the next. And I would, make these changes a little bit at a time. It wasn't all overnight. It took me a long time, probably a good 5 years to really get her into a good space. And there were multiple things going on that were pretty serious, but now we're in a good place.
And like you're talking, so my dogs are on raw, but I'm probably nowhere near as knowledgeable about raw as you. Probably, if you saw my raw, you'd be like, oh, you're doing it wrong. But my dogs are on raw. They've been on raw for a while. I started feeding. So when I started feeding raw, at that point, I only had one dog, my Marley. Now I have 3. But I started feeding him raw because he was my first dog. As a first-time dog owner, you go to the store and you get yourself dog food, right? And he was having really sensitive stomach to it. Like literally every other day he was having diarrhea and there was nothing I could do about it. So I did all the typical things. I gave him Pepto-Bismol, I gave him bananas, I gave him rice, but he still just wasn't reacting. And then as soon as I'd stop doing that, he'd right away go back to reacting. So I switched from one dog food to the next. I found one that was like, okay. And it was fairly good. And I used to recommend it to a lot of people. It was a small company and it was pretty good stuff. But even then he would still have these reactions and I was like, I need another option. And eventually, I started discovering this whole raw diet, raw community type of thing, right? And I changed him to it. I think you're muted.
Just because somebody was taking out the trash and making a lot of noise.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a mistake, like we lost you. But when I changed him to it, I slowly started to see his health change. I never thought of it in any sort of way of behavioral wise. And then I have my second dog who I got, who I found her on the street, and she was basically half dead when I found her. And she has her own long story. But in the beginning, I wasn't planning on keeping her, so I was being cheap about it and giving her kibble. And she had skin infections and all sorts of her whole body messed up. And when I decided I'm switching her to raw, and that she was my dog, so she's going to get the same thing as my other dog. Within a couple of months, her skin cleared up and her eye infections went away and things went away. So I definitely know that side of it firsthand of seeing things change physically,
yeah. Can you imagine? Right. Can you imagine Russ training a dog that has issues like that, like skin disease or allergies or gut trauma or immune system imbalance? And how does it affect your brain if you're not eating the right food every day? Hey Sam, how do you think that's going to affect their brain, but also the training result, and also be a reflection on the trainer sometimes with really severe cases that you just can't seem to get anywhere, and you've exhausted all you been really creative with the training program, and it's like the dog still can't settle down in the crate and there's just a wire crossed, what do I think all that stuff is really important and can really affect behavior.
Yeah. So you're a dog trainer. Do you tell your clients to do these things, to change the dog's diet and all of that? Like that's a touchy subject.
It is. And I through trial and error, I've had to learn, when to bring it up, how to push. But the thing is though, like I try to weed out my clients. I only take people that are going to be open-minded, so I have a program that's called Mind and Body, and it's for behavioral cases like reactivity, separation anxiety. I really don't want to be doing that stuff, but I also understand that these dogs need help, and there's so little trainers that can. Well, today there's a lot, but there's generally speaking so many little trainers that can actually, help these dogs, through a state of mind approach. But I do work with those dogs, and I will not work with them if they don't talk to me about the diet and change the diet and get on. They don't have to be going to the vet and be doing an entirely integrative or holistic, switch. But, I talk about mainly diet and microbiome restorative therapy, gut restoration. So I would love to get into that with you as well and talk about how, poop eating is actually in balance of the microbiome. But, those are the two things that I'm very strong on. And if I have a dog with separation anxiety or reactivity, I'm like, look, more so the severe separation, like a dog was eating away at the house on the outside because they put him out there and they couldn't deal with it. And I'm like, yeah, you need to do those two things. That's the only, because otherwise I will not go over and just start correcting the dog. And it's not what I do. And, it's going to be a reflection on me when I can't get results.
Right.
So those are important to me. And when, sometimes people have to struggle and then eventually realize, oh shit, like I need to really think about this, change things.
Yeah. The idea makes sense. I mean, if you think about a child who's eating Fruit Loops and lollipops all day, they're not going to do well in school. Chances are it's going to affect them, and they're going to have all sorts of behavioral issues generally. So it totally makes sense. It's just something that I think most dog owners don't even think about. And I think because we've kind of been commercially brainwashed to believe that the stuff that has a nice piece of meat on the package is what's good for your dog rather than the actual piece of meat. Right?
Marketing is so powerful. So powerful.
Yeah. So speak to me about this microbiome. I don't understand what it is personally. The little I know about it is from watching your stuff. Somebody recently asked me yesterday, I was driving a dog home and it was about an hour drive. So I went on live on Instagram, just pop up Q&A, and someone asked me about dogs eating poop and why they do it. And I was like, I'm not even giving an answer on this one. Just watch Peter talk because I'm sure he'll have more to say.
Well, that's great. So it means I'm doing something right, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on here, Russ, is because for the place that I work, the facility that I worked at for a few years part-time, and also I know several other balance trainers, and some positive only too, are recommending, putting the dog on raw. They're advocating for a raw food diet. But I do feel like it's not emphasized enough, and I'd like to see it emphasized more. I'd also like to see the topic of hormone health brought up more, especially for, all dogs, but especially the ones with this anxiety and the separation issues, how hormones, being spayed and neutered in general, but especially early, like Allie was at 8 weeks old, not good, not okay. Mm. And how that affects everything from your brain to your bones. So I think those are important topics that need to be brought up. And also gut health, hormone health, gut health, and species appropriate diet, and also species appropriate lifestyle too. And I know before we went live, we talked about some dogs, even no matter how awesome of a program they went through and how bomb-proof their skills are, should never be off leash and they're a liability. You know those dogs I'm talking about. And I'm sure many of your viewers might know too. But I do think species appropriate lifestyle is important too, to give them that opportunity to sniff and to jump in the mud and chase frogs and whatever. I think but there's got to be a balance, and it's done safely and responsibly. Yeah.
Well, in that regard, I think like the lifestyle thing is, I try to talk a lot to my clients and like content and whatever, all that stuff that I put out on the idea of how training gives your dog more options to be a dog, right? More availability to be a dog, because a dog that's living on a couch all day, as nice as it looks to us, is not really being a dog, and dogs, I think, deserve more than that. I think that dogs deserve to have the opportunities to be a dog. Like, for me, there's no greater pleasure than watching my dogs and clients' dogs, when they're with me, run around and be off leash and be psychos and roll over and be crazy dogs running around, right? But I would never be able to do that responsibly without the training aspect of it. And I think it kind of plays into that, allowing them to really be dogs through proper training.
Right. And, I think, I allow Allie to chase squirrels or deer in the woods. I mean, in the woods, when I know, like, I wouldn't let her do it in the middle of the road.
Right.
I wouldn't let her do it into the road. I mean, that's not okay. But I never let her. I wouldn't want her to kill another animal. I mean, if she did, it is what it is.
Why not? I mean, going along your thing of like lifestyle.
Well, I love all animals, and I don't like that she chases frogs, but I like that she's getting to express that instinct of her, that drive to like to hunt. But I would feel bad if she killed a frog, and it could potentially be toxic for her. Like, you wouldn't want them to eat that. One time she licked a dog that was on a trail that was camouflaged. She saw it and she licked it, and it emitted this poisonous defense mechanism on its back, and she started vomiting and mouth right away. And so obviously we don't want that, but I love all animals. I don't want her to kill anything, but I want to be able to let her chase it and then call her off it, like, say, 3/4 of the way, because I want her to, stretch her legs and run like a cheetah. Like, that's really good for the body to do that. And I feel like, that's an important part of keeping them healthy, their mind too, and making them happy.
Yeah. So spay and neuter. Spay and neuter is like a huge topic nowadays. Everyone is told that it's the right thing to do. I get asked my opinion on it a lot, and my response is always, it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
And I don't have a public opinion on it because I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to give a public opinion on it, and that it's not necessarily my place to.
Well,
the thing that I will tell people is that I think the dogs should wait until they're mature, like physically mature, to do it. But most vets push much younger. I mean, 8 weeks old, that's like crazy young, but even 5-6 months is what I see to be the average. And what effect do you think that's having on these animals?
Well, I have a very strong opinion about this topic, and it's very controversial, the topic in general. But look, I mean, we take these animals into our homes, and we have a duty and responsibility to be hormonally and endocrinology responsible for them. And you shouldn't be just spaying and neutering a dog because they're too hyper. You know what I mean? Like, that's not okay. But there are situations where it's appropriate. We do have an overpopulation problem, and not just because of some dogs aren't spayed or neutered, but there are a lot of breeders out there that are breeding dogs because they want a new kitchen or because they want to stay home and raise puppies, but they don't know the first thing about that. Right. So there's a lot of bad and indiscriminate breeders out there, which is a huge topic on its own, that is contributing to the overpopulation problem. But I do think spay and neuter has its place and is appropriate in some situations. Like down the south is it's just crazy, and dogs everywhere. And they even make there's a vaccine now that you can inject into like the testicles, and it renders them incapable of reproducing, but I still believe it can give off that smell, which is really a problem as well. And I've heard Dr. Karen Becker say chlorella, if a dog is spayed or neutered, you can give them chlorella when they're in heat to get rid of that scent. I thought was interesting, and I would want to research on. Sorry, I tend to ramble and I get off the main question you asked me, so just feel free to stop me. And
I'm listening to the rambling, but no, I'm curious, like, what effect do you think? Yeah, I get that. I understand why people say you should spay and neuter. Overpopulation. Some people like to say that it prevents cancers, but I guess you can't get testicular cancer if you don't have testicles, so that makes sense. But what effect do you think it's having on dogs, like health-wise and behavioral-wise? Because I know this is something that you're passionate about, this topic.
Yeah, I think, man, it can affect like behavior, cognition. It can affect immunologic, like cancer. I know that dogs, I was looking at a few studies yesterday. They were older studies, but it said spayed females are 1 to 4 times or up to 4 times more likely to get lymphoma, mast cell tumor, osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer, and both cardiac and splenic hemangiosarcoma, which is very aggressive when they're intact, especially when they're spayed or neutered, especially early. And so, but if it was said a while back that if you can reduce the likelihood of mammary cancer, and also the whole reduce aggression thing, I think is a load of bull. I see a lot of spayed or neutered aggressive dogs.
Yeah, and I was like, I get that a lot. I was talking to, I have a dog that's with me for a while now. He's staying with me for the whole summer. He's going home next week. But when his owner and I were first chatting, when he was coming actually for training, and she was asking me about it, and she's like, I don't understand why they're pushing me to neuter and whatever. And she's like, the only thing is that they keep telling me that it's going to prevent him from getting aggressive, right? And things like that, and or having as many behavioral issues. And the one thing I can say on that is I'm no expert, but just about, like, I would say more than 90, like close to 100%, but not full 100% of the dogs that I work with. So 99% of the dogs I work with are spayed and neutered. They're coming to me because of behavioral issues. So if that was the quick fix and it just worked, then they wouldn't all be coming to me. And I'm not saying necessarily, I don't know if the spay and neuter plays into their behavioral issues or not. That's what I'm curious your opinion on. But I know it definitely isn't helping because they're all still coming to me and I'm busy and these dogs all have issues.
It absolutely plays into the behavior issues. Dogs with severe separation anxiety, thunderstorm phobia, firework phobia, noise phobias in general, containment phobia, which I think is a little bit more rare to see, but it happens. And, absolutely, if they're missing the crucial hormones, how do it can affect, like I said, everything from your brain to your bones. And really, I have heard that some women who have, are missing those parts, they feel like they want to commit suicide sometimes. So imagine our dogs that are missing those vital hormones, how they might feel, and they can't tell us. And we're just trying to correct that behavior. And it's like, yikes. I think that I have a lot of high-end clients. I live in a very wealthy area. And, I see, this is not just my town, but it's everywhere. We're getting dogs for convenience. He's too hyper. I don't want him to be so playful or high energy. I'm just going to chop his balls off. Or, you know what I mean? I think that's so selfish.
Right.
And I'm just going to, I make over $100,000. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying hypothetically, I make over $100,000 a year. I'm going to feed them crappy Purina. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? I work 3 jobs to be able to do what I do for my dog. Some people just don't give a shit. And I think it's so selfish. And that's a big problem. People are killing dogs. We're responsible for the demise of dogs, and they will be extinct one day. And they're dying younger and younger. I hate to be depressing, but they're dying younger and younger. Allie got cancer at 5 years old. I'm lucky that she shouldn't be alive.
And so what could be done to change? Because the reality is that a lot of people who are listening to this, or in general, like, I got my dogs neutered. Well, one of them I got neutered. One of them came to me already neutered, and my dog Mama Bear the Pit, I got her spayed. She had a ton of babies and she was very sick. And at that point I thought it was the right thing to do. And she was older already. But like someone like me, let's say, right? My dog, Marley Hendricks, they're neutered. I did it thinking it's the right thing to do, right? I wasn't being selfish about it. I was told it's the right thing to do. And I was a first-time dog owner. What do I do now? Like, is there anything to really do about it now? Or now, like, it's too late? The dog is, let's say, I mean, my dog's not screwed, but, like, hypothetically speaking, is a dog just screwed because that's what it is?
And I want to just make a point here real quick. You're right. There is that class of people that just simply don't know. And just, they're listening to their vets, and their vets, aren't open-minded and don't want to stay up to date and, think about what they could have been doing wasn't right all along. But, if your dog is spayed or neutered and they're not showing signs of an endocrine immune imbalance like Allie was, and we can talk about what that looks like in a little bit, you can put them on damage control support, put them on a glandular. So, for example, if Allie were to catch that rabbit, she'd be getting everything, fur, all the organs, everything, the hormones, the brain, and all those things. So there's a glandular out there. I think it's called Dr. Mercola Whole Body Glandular. There's one for males, one for females, and it has everything that they'd get when they catch prey, including the ovaries and including the testicles. So you can do something like that proactively to prevent them from showing signs or going haywire like Allie did. And there's also, homeopathic remedies. There's also tablets that are just like, ovary. But there's many ways you can do it. But I think any dog that comes in spayed or neutered, I would love if trainers were like, yep, put that dog on a hormone support, and here are some products you can check out. This one is what I would suggest. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. That's one of my goals, is to get trainers to start talking about hormone health with their clients. Just mention it. Just put it in the training pamphlet and then let them do with it what they want, But mention it.
I think that the average owner who gets their dog spayed and neutered, I mean, like you said, in your area, you think a lot of people are doing it because like it's just convenience. What I find, and we have two different groups of people, like clientele type style people we're working with, and all of that. But I think that the people who I come in contact with and who I've spoken to about this, and my clients, like most of them are getting the dog spayed and neutered for lack of any other better knowledge. Because when your vet tells you to do something, you hire this vet because he has the information you're assuming is correct, right? So when the vet tells you this is what you should do for your dog to better its life, you're going to do it because you love this animal and you care about it, right? So you're going to do it. And it's a very conflicting, confusing thing, because it's like there's tons of vets saying to do it, and then there's a couple of random dudes who have Facebook groups, right? And they're like, you shouldn't do this, right? And I think it's a very slow growing movement of people who are saying that this isn't necessarily a good idea. And people now, once they're finding out it's not good, are kind of like stuck, right? They don't know what to do. They don't know, like, now who do I trust? Can I trust my vet still? Can I, like, is everything my vet says crazy and not true? Like, how does that all play out? How do you approach that with clients and people that you come into contact with when you're discussing this?
I mean, you have to bring it up respectfully, very carefully and considerately, and be very gentle about it. Sometimes people ask me outright, like, what do you think about spaying him? Or what are your thoughts on that? I'm not sure I want to. And so I send them I tell them what I know there. And then I send them when I'm home, like, articles. Like I talked to you, I have a desexing dogs pamphlet that is it really is the property of a private subscription Facebook group called Inside Scoop, which is run by Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib. So that's a great group to join and to, really get amazing.
What is it called?
It's called Inside Scoop. And it's run by Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib. And it's $10 a month, but it goes towards the Pause for Change Foundation. And they have their mission and what it's going towards, which is amazing. Angela Spence asked, what are your thoughts about spaying and neutering for responsible owner's sake? Well, I think that, like I said a few minutes ago, we got to be hormonally and endocrinologically responsible for these dogs. So just don't let your dog roam the neighborhood unsupervised. You can still have them off leash if you have voice control, if they're trained, which is what Russ and I do as well. But I think being responsible, I think we need to take a hard look at what being responsible means. And being responsible, we've been so conditioned to think that being responsible means we got to spay or neuter them, whether young or just in general. You know what I mean? So I think we have to look at that. And I think that it needs to be that I really want that to start changing. But we have a long ways to go. It isn't even a conversation in the mainstream right now. And I'm hoping that I can be a part of getting it there.
Yeah. I mean, to me, responsible dog ownership is a lot more than just spay and neuter. I look at responsible dog ownership as like actually training your dog, actually like giving it some rules in its life so it's not going crazy, giving it guidance because you're the one who chose to bring it into this human world and not itself. Your dog would probably be just fine. I mean, maybe not like little pitsy dogs, but most dogs would be just fine running around the forest all day, right? And they'd figure things out on their own in a natural way. And we bring them into our lives, which is beautiful, and we should. But then think about responsible dog ownership in more than just, because a lot of the people that are saying that spay and neuter is the responsible thing to do, their dogs are also going nuts. Their dogs also don't know what to do in this human-centric world that we bring them into. So, like, are you really being responsible,
For sure. I think it definitely 100%.
So the spay and neuter thing you talk about, it's basically giving hormones to the dog once if they're already spayed and neutered in order to.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be the same as having
Right.
your testicles or your ovaries, but it's something, and I think that's we need to be doing that. It's not, you can't think that there's not going to be a consequence from. And some dogs, if you're lucky, don't get cancer and they're spayed or neutered. They live to 15, 17 years old, and that's amazing, but it's rare. It's
Right.
rare, and cancer is 1 in 2 dogs, and I think that it's a valuable piece that needs to be really given a lot of thought. And again, answering Angela's question, what does responsible really mean? I think we've been told if you're responsible, it's been drilled into us. Google search spay neuter and look at all the campaign posters of like the different phrases they've used, like just like I'm sure some of the phrases, some of the bullshit phrases that have been used in the positive only community, I don't know what they are, but they get upset with us for saying no and they think it's abuse and whatnot. But I think that spaying and neutering is a form of abuse, and feeding dogs processed food is definitely a form of nutritional abuse. But does that mean if you feed kibble, you're a bad owner? It doesn't mean that at all. That dog's in a loving home eating kibble where otherwise it might have been in a shelter or could be dead. Right. But I think there's always room for improvement and always room to keep learning and being open-minded. And that's really what I want to get across, is that
Yeah. You kind of stopped mid-sentence there.
I read a comment coming in.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, but I wanted to finish your thought. But yeah, I think that I guess the reason why I have a hard time calling it abuse, let's say, to spay and neuter, or abuse to feed kibble. And I understand exactly where you're coming from with that. But the reason why I have a hard time saying that is not because I think that it's not wrong, but it's owners are doing what they're told is right. Just like an owner who never tells their dog no, right? And I don't, even though I have strong feelings about that, but I don't think that they're doing it in any way, because I believe that saying no to your dog is a good thing, right? I believe that structure is a good thing. Boundaries is a good thing. All these things that people are generally told to not guest appearance, all the things that people are generally told not to do and that are bad, I think not doing those things is bad for your dog. But the reason why I wouldn't use the word abuse like that is because the way I look at it is that so many people are being fed this information, and it's so ingrained in people that what they think is the right thing. They think they're helping their dog, right? They think when you go buy a high quality kibble that's the best thing you could do. They think spaying and neutering is the best thing for your dog. Right. So I just have a hard time using that word because that word is very strong, No,
it is. You're absolutely right. It is very strong, but no, I totally see what you're saying. And yeah, I'm not saying people that are feeding kibble that don't know about feeding real food, because again, it goes back, like kibble's been around for 115-ish years, and it goes back to marketing. Like it's all about, it goes back to James Spratt, and you look at all of his marketing campaigns, and it's all about convenience, no mess, no cleanup. And it's just, thanks, Tiffany. Appreciate that. And, if you don't know, you don't know. But I think once you know better, you can only do better. And so no judgment to anyone eating processed food, but if you can afford to get off processed food, then you should do so. And if you can't, then there's always ways. For like $5 a month, you can boost the nutrition of that kibble.
Yeah, cow. Because a lot of people can't afford raw, and a lot of people don't have access to gun clubs, right? And I know there are other ways to do it, like Craigslist. You can find a lot of meat, even though it sounds crazy, but you could. I've seen tons of people who get meat from restaurants that's not being used, and it's still great for a dog and things like that. So there are ways to do it. But what are some options that people have to make their kibble more, like you said, more nutritional and $5?
Well, you can add some. So kibble, when you crack open the bag, it has a very short shelf life. I mean, it begins to, the fats sprayed on the kibble begin to oxidize the second you crack open the bag. And, I've been to, and they go rancid really quickly. So you want to buy a small bag, and you want to keep it in the freezer. Keep it in the freezer. You don't want that bag to get wet and moldy, but you can throw it in a glass mason jar and put it in the freezer, and it's going to preserve the fats. It's going to hold the fats from going rancid for a little while, and you can feed that. That's a really good way. Or when you open the bag of kibble, you want to, the top, you want to roll it up and really make it airtight as possible, and put that bag into the plastic container. Don't just dump the bag of kibble into the plastic container and then when it's done, throw another bag in. Like, you want to wash it, because the fat, the rancid chicken fat, gets caked all along the sides, and it's disgusting, and that creates inflammation in the body. And then just chronic disease is a result of chronic inflammation. So it's gross. And I've been to kennels where that is happening, and it's disgusting, and they're not being washed. So
people don't even think about it. People think you got a new bag, you throw it in. No one really thinks about the fact that there's a lot of slime on it.
But that's the idea with kibble, is that, like, it's feed, and you, like, in barns, they're thrown on the barn floor for the chickens to forage and eat. That's really what kibble is. It's feed. And so you can do things like add some, salt, wild caught sardines packed in water, no salt added. Sorry. And you can add ideally a pasture raised or free range at the least, chicken egg or duck egg, but you don't want to do the crappy conventional ones with the bleached white shell. If it's a pasture raised or free range egg, especially from a local farm, for those people living in those kind of areas, you can feed the shell because there's been no chemical sprayed on it. You can feed it with the feathers and the dirt still on it. It's great. It's great. You can also add things like prebiotics, like asparagus, chop up some asparagus. You can, lots of different things, krill oil. Not a big fan of sardine oil or fish oils that are in plastic bottles where air can get through and go rancid, and also a lot of heavy metals and salmon. Nothing's perfect these days. Nothing's perfect.
The world's not organic anymore.
Perfect, but there are better choices than others. So like krill oil or sardines or phytoplankton, things like algae oil. Those are better choices than salmon oil because it's less toxicity. So again, going back to staying open-minded, continuing to learn, being a student forever, there's always something to improve on. I did everything wrong for like 6 years. And, did I make my dog sick? There was things that I did that contributed to or sped up the process. But, I think dogs are so damaged today that it's not going to change in my lifetime. I think it's going to be a generational thing where they have to be bred certain ways, not just like backyard bred, eating crap food, getting over vaccinated, things like that. I think that's going to contribute to dogs dying younger and younger. Yeah.
Do you think that genetics are kind of messed up these days in general, and that plays into a lot of the health and behavior?
Oh yeah. I heard on a podcast from Dr. Becker and Rodney Habib in their podcast, they mentioned something, this was a while back, how the golden retriever, who's one of the most genetically damaged dogs, right?
Yeah, I have one.
pretty much all the Goldens were bred from, it goes back to the Dam and the Sire from England, I believe, where those dogs had lymphoma and cancer.
Right.
And so, don't quote me on that. That's just take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I heard, and I might have come out differently than what they said. So, but it just goes to show you, I think that we have to start breeding dogs for health and longevity. When puppies in the wild are born in dirt dens and they're getting exposed to the healthy soil in that bacteria that they're getting on their paws, it's covered in their prey, their food. So healthy soil is covered on their food. They're getting that constant exposure to these microbes, and there can be anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 microbes in just 1 gram of healthy soil. And the soil today, this soil today is not the same as it used to be. And it's all over my computer. Great. It's not the same as, it used to be. And there's Roundup and glyphosate and chemicals in the soil, and even if you don't spray your yard, it can blow over from your neighbor's yard. And I just think we're killing our planet, and and our dogs are on our planet, and we're killing ourselves. Big topic, but I think, when puppies are like automatically dewormed, they're given dogs are given antibiotics when they have diarrhea. Do you take an antibiotic when you have diarrhea?
No, I don't. I haven't taken antibiotics in a very long time. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when the last time I was, honestly.
But it can be serious for a dog, and it can get dehydrated. If you have an older dog, it can be very serious. Puppies, but it's like automatically, let's just give them an antibiotic just reactively, just because, and it clears up 2 days later. But it keeps happening and it keeps happening and it keeps happening. And it's around. That's with Allie's case. It completely destroyed her gut because it kills all the good and the bad. And here I have a reactive dog that's got separation anxiety, and reactive dog's been in many dog fights. And like, I wonder if that was a factor. It certainly didn't help. I think that dogs can be reactive from lack of leadership. Absolutely. But then you throw in these health issues and it's like, whoa.
Right. And just makes the mix even worse.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, like I think it was the signs of what was it, immune deficiency or something like that, that you started to notice in Allie, right? What are those signs? Like, what does that look like in a dog to know that they're have that what did you call it? That internal trauma. I don't remember the word you used for it.
So a lot of the people that know myself and Allie and that worked with us at the training center knew that she was always very skinny. Like, people would say, like, aren't you feed your dog? And I'm like, I am. Like, she's just not. I can't put weight on her. Like, nothing I did would put weight on this dog, and she was getting her appetite was voracious. I think I was feeding her anywhere from 2.5 to 3 pounds of raw food a night.
Wow.
It's losing weight. And this is for a dog that should be around 50 pounds.
Yeah, that's
a lot of food. And, and your mind was just like all over the place. You just could not. She was such a high-strung dog that, it was just looking at her, just seeing her like that was just heartbreaking, Like, I want to help her, and there was only a certain point where we could, and then it's like she needed to be on meds, I was told, and I agreed. And I want to talk about CBD and THC on how that helps her now. But basically, for the immune imbalance, I did an endocrine immune blood test, EI1 blood test, which is only run through National Vet Lab in Texas. I don't know for what reason, but it's also called the Plechner test, Plechner, and people can go to Dr. Plechner, Plechner.com, drplechner.com, and it talks about this syndrome, this metabolic syndrome, that is as a result of what he calls the medical ice age. Dogs being, indiscriminately backyard bred, so crappy genetics, generation after generation after generation, being spayed and neutered at 8 weeks old, like Allie, antibiotic after round, or the overuse of antibiotics and just prescription drugs and feeding processed food and feeding pesticides for fleas and ticks, putting them on the back for spot-on topicals, using the Dawn to clean their bowls and to wash their skin with. Like, you're ruining their skin microbiome. It's the largest organ in the body, and we're putting Dawn dish soap on it. All right, everyone's doing things with blinders on, and it's killing our dogs. And so this is what contributes to the endocrine problem that she has. So I had to go around my environment as much as I could and clean up the hormones in her environment. She's on a non-toxic dog bed, an organic non-toxic dog bed, because otherwise she loves to lick things. And there's flame retardants. And is that going to kill her today? No, but it's the buildup of that stuff day in, day out that it really have a far-reaching effect on overall health and your hormones. So I think these are all little things that are, the little details really matter, and they stack. We talk about in balanced training, go after the fuse, not the explosion. I've heard that from lots of times. And, going after the little moments, like when you grab the leash, or when reactivity basically starts before you go on the walk.
Before you leave the house.
Before you cap that arousal before they, because you don't want them pulling you out the door, then scanning, and that's, you've already lost.
Right.
So this is what I'm talking about with the little details, like the bed, the chemicals, the things we use to clean their bowls every day, the type of a bowl we feed them out of. These little things, they stack, and they can create a big issue that for a dog that's spayed or neutered can make a big difference.
So for the average dog owner, where does somebody even start with these things? Because it sounds very overwhelming, right? Like you did a ton of research. You basically devoted your life to this, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is your passion, and it's beautiful. But where does the average owner who's not starting a Facebook group and devoting their life to all this, where do they start to even know what to do, what to change, how to change? What are some practical steps that somebody listening to this that is interested in it could actually take to better the life of their dog in this aspect of it?
Well, I think number one, not to self-promote, but you can join my Facebook group, which is Allies. It's Allies, ALLIE'.
I'll throw it in the comments after the live so everyone can go to it.
It's Allie's Canine, spelled out Cancer Crew, Allie's Canine Cancer Crew, and it's got a little over 3,000 members now. And it's all about being proactive and learning, and no judgment. So you can be feeding kibble, and it's a judgment-free group, and we just want to help each other and help dogs live longer. We want to build we want to build that 30-year-old dog from Australia. We want all of our dogs to live with us for that long, if possible, or at least I do.
Yeah.
For selfish reasons, I would love to have,
And like, do people change up their whole way of life for their dog? Like, that's what it sounds like you did. Like, you cleaned out your house, you changed up the stuff you have, the chemicals, everything.
So, for example, some do, but it's not about just doing it for the dog. It starts with the dog. Just like I've heard some trainers talk about their dog's behavior has changed their behavior and state of mind. It's brought them into this whole world of personal development and changing their mindset. My dog's health issues and her behavior issues have really made me think about my own health, my own behavior. Today I went to a biological dentist that practices ozone therapy because my older dentist I went to since I was a little kid wasn't open-minded and wasn't willing to stay up to date in research. And when I brought it up to him, he's like, "Oh, there's no double-blind placebo, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, there is. It's just that it's that conventional mindset that But Allie, I eat a lot cleaner. It's not perfect, but I eat a lot cleaner. I do a lot of therapies that she does for myself. It's expensive to do it for both of us, but that's why I have 3 jobs and I work as hard as I do because
switched it off. It's like, all right, Allie, you're getting good health today. Now it's my turn. Like, I can only afford one of us at a time.
I know. But I think you have to be easy on yourself, and you don't change everything overnight. It could be as simple as changing, throwing in a little bit of broccoli on your dog's bowl or whatever, or an egg or sardines, or changing the type of bowl, or changing what looking into the ingredients in your home cleaners and looking at them hard and researching every one, and really making small changes. I used to douse Allie's bed in Febreze lavender. I thought it would help with her anxiety. This was years and years and years ago before I actually went to a balance training program with her. But, there's things in there that do DNA damage, but it's Febreze and it's the whole marketing thing. Everybody loves it and it smells wonderful. But
a quick question from Tiffany, because I'm also interested in this. What do you use to wash your dog's bowls? What do you recommend?
I love Castile soap. I use a brand called Dr. Bronner's, and it's just pure Castile soap. And it's got some essential oils in it. It's very clean. Lots of things. Vinegar, I use sometimes ozone, but that's not everyone is going to be that extreme. But I think just Castile soap is great. Or Mrs. Meyer. I mean, there's even some brands out there that are better, lesser of the evils than others, like Mrs. Meyer's, 7th Generation. But you can also, I also, for example, my all-purpose cleaner is 50% vinegar, 50% distilled white vinegar, 50% water, and I save the peels off my lemons and my oranges and my citrus peels, put them in there. You add 5 or 10 drops of grapefruit seed extract and viola and a sprig of rosemary. There you go, free. You can make a whole.
Probably smells great.
It smells great and it does a great job, and you can make a whole ton of it for really, really cheap.
So, I mean, I never even thought about washing my dog's soap with anything but Dawn. It's like until right now, even I never even thought of it. I have a big thing of it, and it's so easy, it's so convenient. But yeah, that makes total sense. So I want to shift a little bit from the food thing to something that really, this is something that's been on my mind a lot, because I have a dog that struggles with one of my personal dogs with thunder phobia, fireworks phobia, gunshots, which we shouldn't hear those in New York City, but unfortunately we do sometimes. Right. And it like shuts her down. And I've tried all of the typical training advice that everybody gives, and I know it all. I've done it with other dogs. Some dogs it's worked with, and able to change their mindset. But with her, there's just a dead end, and there's no changing it at that point. It's just, this is a part of who she is, and I know I can't change it. And I don't think it has anything to do with my training being bad. I think it's a part of who she is. What can I do to make her life better in that sense? Like, I've tried, even like post-train, like past all the training stuff, I've tried tons of CBD stuff, which I thought it worked for a little bit, and then
let's talk about that. So CBD, everyone uses the pet health supplement. The pet supplement market is crazy huge, and a lot bigger than it used to be. And especially today, all the CBD companies out there, there's a billion CBD companies out there, and they're all saying my product's better than their product. Mine's more natural. Mine's healthier for me, for you. Buy mine. Facebook is full of people that are preying on others, trying to just spam and sell their CBD. There are Facebook groups that are dedicated to CBD education, but they're run by CBD companies, and they won't allow you to talk about anything other than their brand. So you have to really be able to filter all this out and know what's truth from misinformation, and be able to tell who is, who puts profits over patients. And that's a big one. And it's a dirty industry, but it's also an amazing, potent, ancient healing plant that can do wonders and has done wonders for Allie, who has, she's needs to be on it for certain, not every day. I think as she gets older, I'm going to have her on it more consistently for things like age-related diseases like arthritis and, but for those situations, no, settle. I love giving her the settle command. It's more of a casual down, but, there for more situational things like thunder, fireworks, just storms. She's got some weird noise phobias. Like when I have a gas stove, when I put the gas stove on the burner, it makes the click, 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 click. She freaks out. But now I open up the fridge.
My dog comes running because she thinks I'm cooking.
Yeah, I've tried to, so it's just that, I reach in the fridge, grab the cannabis, and she comes over to me. She knows she's going to get it, and it makes her feel good. So, but, see, people.
But you're not talking CBD alone for her, right? You're doing CBD THC.
So everyone calls it. It's actually, think of it as under cannabis. There's two different plants. There's hemp and there's marijuana. Yeah. There's different plants. Hemp is more the equivalent of like liquid ibuprofen. It's got some good nutrition. It's anti-inflammatory, but for critical illness, I don't feel like it is useful. I don't think it's going to be giving you what you need. And a lot of people go to CBD from hemp and they get discouraged because it doesn't give them any, results. And then they, just like with in the training world, people go to some trainers and they can't help them. And they're like, when I went to the person I went to, I had already been to a handful and I'd spent thousands and I was so discouraged. I had a hard time believing that this was going to give me anything different. Right. So I think the same can be said with CBD, and you need CBD derived from marijuana. And hate mosquitoes. You need CBD derived from marijuana, and it should also be strain specific. So the type of CBD that we use, by the way, I work for a company. I'm the canine critical illness cannabis oil specialist for King Harvest, kingharvest.org. And we specialize in, cannabis oil therapy for those that are, that are the critically ill. Right, that need this stuff, that maybe don't even have access to it, but they still need it, and we can help them. So thank you very much for posting that link, Russ. So check us out. No obligation, free consult, holistic consult. So if you feel like you have a dog, or a dog, or even for yourself or a family member that could use this therapy, reach out to us, and we'll talk to you for as long as you need. And there's no obligation to buy anything with us. Okay, just a strict educational consult. And if you need help, we'll help you. So you need CBD from marijuana, and the strain that we use is AC/DC, like the band. It's an 18-to-1 ratio, so it's 18 CBD molecules to 1 THC molecule, and that amounts to about 4% naturally occurring sativa THC. And CBD is a sativa by nature. And what do I mean by that? I mean that it's naturally a bit stimulating to the body. So CBD for a dog with anxiety could actually cause more anxiety, but it can also, some dogs, it works wonders for. So every dog is going to be different. But for the severe behavioral or the severe anxiety cases, indica THC is a godsend. So people don't come to us to get high, right. although I love getting high, there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm sure I have a chemical imbalance, and it does great for my anxiety and depression. But basically, yes, the Facebook group was Allie's Canine Cancer Crew, but canine is spelled out CANINE.
I posted it up over there for her.
Thank you, Russ. So
it's
Tiffany,
not an actual link. We'll put the actual link afterwards. I just can't put the link during the live, but I'll post it up afterwards for everybody to go check it out.
Wonderful. So CBD, you need indica THC, and THC is the part of the plant that gets you high.
Right.
But I think there needs to be a perspective on getting high as well, because it can be really kind for some animals, and there's different intensities of highs. You can be smoking a joint that's high THC and blow it in your dog's face, and they could be very shortly thereafter falling over, lethargic, drooling, completely ataxic. And there's a stigma because people on YouTube, and they post it, they think it's funny and they can be seen laughing. It's not okay. It's not funny. You got to use this stuff responsibly, guys. And when you microdose, when the medicine is clean, meaning no chemicals, no pesticides or molds or anything like that, none of the bad stuff in the oil. I'm talking about giving an oil here. So the flower from the plant, not the stem. The stem, the trimmings, the shavings, the leaves, all those, they're discardable. No medical value whatsoever. You want the flower, you want the entire molecule as Mother Nature intended. So in the hemp industry, with CBD, you'll see isolates. They isolate certain molecules from the flower, and that's tampering with Mother Nature. Don't want that. You want whole molecule, whole flower, properly made, so organic, non-GMO, no chemicals whatsoever, third-party lab tested. You should be able to ask for your labs for not only the flower, for all the clean labs, the milligrams, potency, and purity, but also when the flower is then made into an oil, you want to have another lab for that to make sure it's also got the potency and purity wasn't affected in the process. So that's really important. And also a company that can provide you with a caregiver, a caretaker that can help you with the dosing, navigate this, because it's, many people don't know what they're doing, and you're not going to go to the dispensary, the 26-year-old at the dispensary counter, and take advice for your dog or yourself.
Right.
You don't want to have a bad experience. We don't want people to have bad experiences. A lot of people come to us with having bad experiences either with their dog or with themselves, most likely as when they were younger, and we got to now work on changing that mindset of and building confidence in them so that they can do this. They no longer need my help for the dosing. So for dogs with severe anxiety, I recommend not only just indica THC only if you want to just treat the symptom, right? Neurologically, the euphoria, you want to give them that, which is really kind for them. And we'll talk about dosing in a little bit if you want, but if you just want to treat the symptom, indica THC. If you want to cause the entourage effect in the body, which is stimulating one's endocannabinoid system by properly made CBD and THC together in the right ratios and strains, will cause the entourage effect, which brings the body back to homeostasis, that constant internal environment. So that can be done. If the anxiety is an imbalance, which it is, then you need CBD and THC, but you may need most likely more indica THC than CBD, but you still need both. And if you just want to treat the symptom, then just indica THC.
So when you talk about, I think I have an understanding of what you mean, but many people might not. So the entourage effect, which basically means that you're using the full plant, if I'm correct, right? You're using
not the full plant. So not the
I mean the CBD and the THC. Sorry, I know not the leaf, not the branch. I didn't mean that, but what I mean is like the full spectrum effect of what the flower can give you, can give the animal when it's used properly, which would be both sides of it, the THC and the CBD. Is that correct?
Yes, you need both CBD and THC, whole molecule, flower only, properly made.
Right. Okay. And I think that a big concern, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, is the concern of, I don't want my dog to be stoned, right? I don't want, because that's generally speaking, when people hear the term marijuana or cannabis or any of the many words that's used for the plant, that people think of somebody getting high, right? And getting stoned.
Yeah, there's a stigma behind it. It's got a bad reputation, and we have to start changing that.
Right. But how does one balance that out? Because I do understand the concern. I don't want my dog to be so stoned that they're falling over, that they're peeing on themselves, which could happen from too much. It's basically an overdose, right? And how does somebody, what is the system? How does that work? How do you find that, I guess, that magic dose that gets them to that perfect level of euphoria where they're comfortable and able to be at ease without putting them over the edge, which obviously we don't want to do that.
So that's a great question. So dogs have more cannabinoid receptors than we do, so they're more sensitive to THC. So which is why it's important to go slow. If you give your dog 5 drops, let's just say he's for King Harvest. We have let's take 2 bottles, for instance. We have CBD Restore, which is the straight CBD ACDC strain, 18-to-1 ratio, 4% THC, non-psychoactive, non-euphoric. There's that bottle, which is 30 milliliters, 1 ounce, and is 300 milligrams per bottle and 0.5 milligrams per drop infused with coconut oil. Very, very gentle. So let's take that bottle, and then the other bottle, same size, same potency, but it's just 100% pure indica THC, Granddaddy Purple strain, which is going to get the dog high. But the CBD is actually really cool. It can mitigate or lessen the high of the THC. Okay. So if you can strive for that 1-to-1 balance where you get 5 drops CBD, 5 drops indica THC. And that's actually something that I do because I'm a school teacher and I don't want to take Xanax, but I want my relief on those days where I feel up and I'm on the low side, or I have on the high side, I'm anxious and my mind's spinning. So I deserve to be able to put in my body what I wanted to put in my body, but be responsible about it, because you don't want to go to work altered when you're working with kids and you're working with professionals and driving things. You don't want to do that. But, I don't want to use the pills. So, but when you have medicine, clean, properly made medicine like that, you should be able to do it drop by drop. So if you're really nervous, you can start with 1 drop of CBD, 1 drop of THC. But if you want to, we provide a guideline as well. For example, start with 5 drops. That's 2.5 milligrams. It's not a lot, but if you had a dog that was really, really sensitive, then that 5 drops could be a lot. But if you're nervous, start with 1 or 2 drops and then give it 3 or 4 days or see how they do. Take a journaling, note what you're giving, your observations, and then you increase by a couple of drops. That's called microdosing and titrating. You start with a low amount, you start low and you go slow. You gradually build it. And the dogs will develop a tolerance to this stuff as time goes on. So if, let's just say, your thunderstorm dose was 15 drops, that eventually will stop working. If you're giving 15 drops every night, I don't know where you'd live if there was a thunderstorm every night, but if you're giving 15 drops,
it could happen here
every single night, they're going to eventually, you'd have to go up to say 20, or you can give the dog a break for a couple of days and then their tolerance will reset and you can start back from 0. So it's not as strict as, pharmaceuticals. Like you got to have this dose spaced 12 hours apart. Typically when a storm's coming, I try to look at the weather and give it about 2 hours before so that by the time it hits, she's nice and calm. Yeah. And sometimes I'll intentionally giving her a larger dose than normal and knock her out a little bit, because if we're going for a drive that's longer than 2 hours, she's not a fan of the car rides. And if a storm's coming, or I give her that, because otherwise her body's just too stressed, and it's from being spayed so early. She can't. So the cortisol is the stress hormone in her body. Because of the metabolic Plechner syndrome, she can't produce cortisol. So she's on nutrition and supplementation to help her with that.
Gotcha. And when it comes to behavioral things, right? So I've been getting more and more tough cases recently, which I love the tough cases. It's fun. It makes me think. It makes me work. It's not like just an easy peasy train a golden doodle. I still love you, golden doodle owners, because you guys are awesome and I have a lot of you. But it's cool when I get these out of the box cases that I have to really kind of get creative with and think differently and work with the dog as the dog needs. But I think that with some dogs, there comes a dead end of how far training can take them, especially for state of mind things, right? And we can get really, really far through training and through lifestyle changes and the owners really implementing that and all of that great stuff that most of us balance trainers talk about a lot. But when it comes to hitting that dead end, so I have 2 questions for you. When you said you work with some of these tougher dogs, you have a special program for them. At what point do you, as the trainer, decide, okay, I would like to approach another option of maybe introducing THC, CBD, cannabis oil to better help the dog's state of mind? What are you looking at that says, all right, this is a dog that's going to be a good candidate for that?
At what point do I say, okay, I think the dog needs THC?
Yeah, as a trainer, coming from a trainer's perspective, what are you looking at that you're like, this is what's going to be the next option to help kind of close up the gap a little?
Yeah, I think if a dog is scared of the world, or is always shut down, or just loses their mind over something so minute, like the oven being turned on, or the oven being used, or the microwave beep going off, or the smoke alarm is one thing because it's loud. It's loud.
Right,
but
it is annoying. I don't think it either.
It is. And then, fireworks are also like you get a pass because it's like, they have a right to freak out over that. They don't know. But like the things like, I don't know, it's hard to say. I think that like dogs with severe separation issues, or that like even like that can't be left alone for a little while. I think that's really important. If you've done training, if you've done a lot of, conditioning with the crates, you've done positive, balanced training, yes and no, you've done your work, and you've also maybe switched into a raw food diet, you're doing some gut health, and they're still like, losing it sometimes. I think that you got to look into something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, hopefully they'll reach out to you. If they're watching this is your reminder that you should reach out to Peter. But yeah, I think I've had some dogs where just as a trainer, I'm like this, I feel for this dog, right? When you've gone through weeks of training and done things that are historically work, right? And you've done it time and time again with multiple dogs, that it works to get them to be able to live in a more chilled state of mind, which is a big part of what I think training is about. The way I look at it is like help a dog settle in, because a dog that's always living on edge is definitely not happy. And when you get to that point where like, even when you're doing all these protocols every day and it's a part of their life and they still are panting and on edge and stressed, to me, that makes sense to look at other options. I think, again, another thing that also scares people off, maybe this is what also, like, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud now, but also can kind of gets trainers nervous about all these ideas, is there's become such a push from the other side of training and from behaviorists and vets to just jump to drugs, right? And like I've had dogs who I have a dog with me right now. She's a great dog. She's sound asleep the entire time we're talking, which wasn't possible 4 weeks ago. And she's completely chilled now, and she's a different dog. We go out in public, everything, but she was on Prozac, and that was what the vet told the owners was the best thing for this dog. So when you have this massive push towards drugs, then there's almost going to be a pushback from people who see that we can help dogs without it. And I think that it's one of those things that keeps people like holding back from trying these new options that you're bringing in.
I think it's going to be baby steps, man. I think it's going to be baby steps, and just starting the conversation is really important, and letting people know that there are other options. There's other alternatives. And many people have a negative association with getting high or with cannabis or THC. And I think that it is, what King Harvest does is we provide life-saving medicine for dogs and people and cats and anyone with an endocannabinoid system, any mammal that nursed when they're young.
Most mammals.
Most mammals.
All, right? Isn't it all?
Yeah. But, the side you were talking about that just jump to drugs and just, they're stuck in there. They're not open. Like, let them do their thing. You do your thing. They might come to you one day. You never know. I think some people have to come to things in their own time, and they're not ready to hear things yet. Like I've had family members and friends that are, just stuck in the conventional, in the, in their mind, like humane, or, I've lost Evan Doggett said it in a live recently. It was about me. I've lost my uncle and my aunt over using a balanced training approach for my dog and feeding her raw and doing, feeding her poop. We can talk. We haven't talked about that yet. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm saving the worst for last, so we can keep it here.
So that's my favorite topic.
I know you love it.
But my last thing about indica THC is that it can be used, responsibly. But if you have a dog that's just shut down, afraid of life, has no food drive, and doesn't want to work much for you, and is anxious, indica THC is great. It can cause the munchies in the dog.
Right.
So let me just talk quickly about what, high euphoria. There's different intensities. You can be like hallucinating, you can be just tripping, and that's not fun. We don't want that for our dogs. But can we find that sweet spot where they're getting just what they need, but they're feeling better, but also they have quality of life. It's about finding that balance. And it's unfortunately a lot of trial and error. And the safest, most responsible way to do it is to start low and go slow, microdose and titrate. And of course, the quality of the medicine and who you work with, they should be able to coach you along with that. So kingharvest.org.
Yeah, cool. Something definitely that I've been very interested in. And I think it could be, I mean, I don't have experience with it, but excuse me, I'm getting a little under the weather here.
No.
But
You need some poop.
I was waiting for you to say something like that. It's like it takes that saying eat shit, like really literally. But I think like just from hearing you talk about it and hanging out on your Facebook page and seeing the posts from people who've worked with you, I think it could possibly be the missing gap for a lot of dogs after training has been really worked through, you know?
Yep.
So let's talk about eating poop because you want to talk about eating poop. Why do dogs eat poop?
So, so just going back to everything we've talked about on this broadcast so far is, how damaged dogs are from all the things being done to them and just generation after generation of, poor breeding and, assault to their immune systems. I won't even get into it again, but, gut trauma is one of those things, leaky gut, so I have GI issues, and it's hard because, how is it going to affect your brain? So micro poop eating, coprophagia, I hope I said that right, is a microbiome imbalance. Some dogs are addicted to it because most dogs are eating processed food and it's full of sugar. So if that poop is going to be nice, stinky, voluminous, and full of sugar because the animal's not absorbing, that's why the poops are so big.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of switching to raw.
Yeah.
Like half the time, I don't even have to pick it up because it's barely even noticeable. Okay, I still do, but it's barely noticeable.
My buddy John Riccadelli, John is my mentor and one of my best friends, and everybody should go check his page out. Embark Dog Training. RI.
John is definitely a good man. I don't know him as well as you, but I know he's a good guy.
Learned so much from this guy. He is one of my best friends and a mentor, friend for life. He's an awesome guy, and his dog training. He's so good. I'm always learning from him. Always trying to pick his brain. When I lived at this facility, I would always go and ask him, "Can I watch this lesson? Can I watch?" It would be the same, like for how many times can you watch somebody introduce a dog to a prong? Right? How many times could you watch it? But I picked up on something so minute and so small details every time I watched him, something different. And so I credit him for everything I know in dog training, which is this much.
So back to eating shit. So I used to work at a facility before I started my own business. I worked at it was boarding, grooming, training, like everything except for a vet, basically. And most of the dogs that were there for boarding and daycare, and they had like this big play area and dogs were all over. And there were some dogs that would just consistently, as soon as a staff member would turn their head, they would find poop and they would eat it. Yeah. In my mind, it was always like a habit that has to be broken, right? Because this is obviously disgusting. Even if you do it, you know that it's kind of gross. Let's be real, right? But what I never heard discussed was the why. So to me, the only thing I heard thrown around was from like staff and people who I spoke to about it was that the dog is like lacking in nutrition of some sort. But
yeah, there's that, and it's a microbiome imbalance for many reasons, and a microbiome imbalance can be caused for many reasons, like early spay neuter, the processed pet foods, the toxins in those foods can cause leaky gut. Over vaccinations, antibiotics itself can wipe out all the good and the bad, and I think also people are big into like probiotics, and just but probiotics can actually cause gut damage if you're not feeding them their food, the prebiotics, the food for the gut bugs. So that's also something that a lot of people are shocked to hear is like a prebiotic could be asparagus or dandelion. I mean, if you live in the country, if you live in the woods or the nice area where I do, you can go to a field where it's not sprayed with pesticides and pick your own dandelions and chop it up, dry it, feed them the whole freaking flower. That's a superfood full of vitamins and minerals.
Like it, or you just gotta like make it part of her food, like you hide it.
It depends on the dog. I mean, you have to kind of go with the dog that you have. Some won't eat it, and sometimes you have to hide it. And I don't know. It depends on the dog.
Actually, if I showed Marley, like my big guy, if I showed him asparagus, he'd walk away from me. He'd be pissed.
Yeah. So some dogs just don't want vegetables, and that's okay. You can honor that. But they do have a lot of benefits. But microbiome and poop eating, back to that, is an imbalance. But some dogs I do believe get addicted to it because of all the sugar and the crap in it. right? And they want to keep going back to it, and they're missing something. They're trying to satiate what they're missing, and they're not. The poops are so big because the dogs that pooped is not absorbing anything they're eating, the kibble or whatnot. So when you feed them to raw, typically you'll see smaller poops and less stinky poops and firmer poops. And so, how many times can I say that word poop? But maybe John, you can you can tally it there. But what
my start a podcast. It should be called Peter's Shit Talk.
I know, right? Come to my group and you'll hear me talk about it a lot. But my vet, Dr. Margot Roman, who also is John's vet too, and she pioneered this in animal and veterinary medicine. It's called microbiome restorative therapy. It's basically fecal transplant. And some people think that you're cutting the dog open, you're just like a liver transplant, you're putting a poop inside. You're not doing that. It's done in the clinic. No sedation is needed. It's done by making a slurry, the poop and saline, but the poop has to be from a healthy donor dog. So my vet, Dr. Roman, she has purposefully bred 5 generations, and then the 6th generation coming, of healthy, vital, thriving standard poodles. And I'm not a fan of poodles. They're growing on me, but they are.
Quick question on that. Is there a particular reason why she's using poodles, or is that just her breed? Like, that's what she's into?
I don't know. That'd be a good question. I think part of it is her breed, but I'm sure there's a reason that I'm not aware of. But raw food is the best. You're right. So but they were minimally vaccinated. Only getting the core shots of the puppy. Then legally, they every 3 years get a rabies vaccine, but they detox them, eating fresh, raw, organic foods their whole lives, generation after generation after generation. No antibiotics whatsoever, no flea and tick pesticides, minimal chemicals on the property as much as you can. Because like I said, we don't live in a perfect world anymore, but no chemicals inside whatsoever. They live in a green home. And so these animals are so healthy. And so she takes their poop every day, she bags it, and, she brings it to the clinic, and you can buy it like I do, per bag. You can feed it to your animal. They'll take it, which is, or you can buy it in capsule form so you can hide it, and there's no mess to that if you're grossed out by it. But in clinic, your dog would get like a fecal transplant.
Never open Peter's fridge.
My fridge or my freezer. You might see like a deer leg in there, or a deer head, and or a rib cage. And, but in clinic, they take the healthy donor feces, and Allie wouldn't qualify as a donor. She's not well enough to be a donor. She's had too much damage, already to be a donor. So it goes back to, we need to be breeding dogs for health and longevity. And there is a website, Natural Rearing Breeders, which I like a lot. You can, if you're looking for a dog that's, raised like Dr. Roman, that would be a good website to check out. But basically, in the clinic, they get the poop mixed into a saline, they make a slurry, and a certain ratio of it, and then they give the dog rectal insufflation ozone gas, which reduces the biofilm in the gut, which is that sticky, slimy stuff in your mouth when you wake up, the biofilm. They reduce it in the gut so that the new transplant going in via catheter and syringe is just making a better home, all populating the gut, lining the walls better, and not being, from the biofilm can deter that. It can make it harder for them. So it's really easy to do, really simple, no sedation necessary. It's invasive, but so is it's like taking your dog's temperature, really. Right. If they can tolerate that, they can tolerate this. And you want them to really, ideally keep them from going to the bathroom as long as possible after it, ideally overnight to the next day. So I think timing is right. I fast Allie before I do it. And she gets her new biome, and she gets a little piece every couple days orally to maintain that, because of things that are unavoidable. Like, when I found a nest under my deck here, it was a hornet's nest, and bees were everywhere, and I just went crazy and sprayed pesticides everywhere. The exposure to that can cause damage to the gut. So, if you're a nutcase like me and you care about little things like that, then you do what I do, giving a little piece of poop every day, or once a week for maintenance, or once a month.
What's the goal of giving your dog this poop, whether it's rectally or feeding it to them? What are you getting to with it? Like, I understand there's this deficiencies. What are you trying to do for it?
Well, obviously I want her to live as long as possible for selfish reasons.
But I'm saying, like, what effect does it have on her body? What does that do by eating this healthy poop?
It restores the gut microbiome. So it's not about just giving the poop. The dog also, you want to prep the terrain with a nice diet and things like that first. Otherwise, if you're feeding kibble, the new microbiome transplant's going to be ruined. So you want to, you have to do things before to prep them for it. But what it does is the gut microbiome is 80% of the immune system, 80%, or maybe a little bit more. So if you can start there, if you have a dog with chronic health issues or behavior issues, if you can start there, doesn't that make a lot of sense to you? Like that's, if you can start with 80% of the immune system, that's huge. So you start there, and then you add in your training, and you got your nutrition. And I think that's an excellent way to approach it, but is every vet doing it? No, I think we have a long way to go, but I also think that, for dogs that are eating their own poop or have behavior issues, I think every dog should get it. I really do believe that every dog should get a fecal transplant. And she's had amazing results with it. She's seen dogs' fur come back completely and behave, aggressive dog. I mean, this is the crazy part. Aggressive dogs grooming their housemate, which is that going to happen every time? No, but who knows? Who knows that was there some species or strain of bacteria in the gut that was missing that made them become aggressive? Like, as wacky as that sounds, I think that science is heading in a direction where microbiome is now the new frontier in medicine, and where it used to mean nothing, right? The gut health. What is that microbiome? But now it's everywhere you look. So why do we have to, we have to keep that in mind. And, I get Allie's food from a place in Bluffton, Georgia, where they ship it to me on ice. It's raw food, and they have a beautiful pasture. They care about the soil. They test the soil. They do they correct the deficiencies. I email them, say, hey, can you ship me a jar or a baggie of your healthy soil? And I sprinkle a little bit over Allie's food every day when I can, if I have some. And so, there's actually a study right now going on, Canine Healthy Soil Project. And Steve Brown, who is the founder of Steve's Real Food, some people might know that food if they see it in a pet store, he was able to unlock the fear response in his rescue pup. And I know some people hate saying rescue, but he was able to unlock the fear response in his dog, who didn't want to poop in his yard, only wanted to poop in the street, and was very fearful of like a pin would drop and he would freak out. Like, he doesn't do that because of feeding him healthy soil and over his raw food. Giving dogs what they need biologically, honoring them as a species, that has to be the first, that has to be where we start. Diet change number one, giving them a healthy exposure to soil, walking them in the woods, reaching down in a broken tree stump, being here, eat this healthy soil. Is it going to be perfect soil? No, but probiotics are only 14 species, maybe, if you're lucky. That's probably the best pre-probiotic on the market for dogs is Adored Beast, Phytos Flora, or Love Bugs. It's got canine healthy feces in it. It's got soil-based probiotics in it. It's got 14 species of bacteria and prebiotic. So the prebiotic is from the larch tree, which is basically when deer, because deer eat the tree bark and then dogs kill the deer and they get the tree bark already digested in their stomachs. That's a prebiotic.
Right.
Allie loves eating tree bark. I get so even worried about her that she's going to get a blockage, but she loves eating tree bark.
Interesting. Yeah. And so you're talking a lot about honoring a dog's lifestyle, right? And who it is, and what it is, and all of that. What does that look like to you? Like, when you say that, what do you have in mind? And I get there's a lot of aspects to it. So there's the diet, there's the health, there's the training, obviously, there's letting it be a dog. Is it just letting a dog be a dog? Like, I think it could get taken out of context also, because if you think about honoring a dog for who it is, it might mean just let a dog do whatever it wants and we're honoring it for who it is, right? Open
the door, let them run out in the neighborhood and hump everything in sight and have puppies. No, it's not what I'm saying. I mean, it means Allie is a highly trained dog. I can call her off deer, prey. I mean, thanks to John and everything, I have, I've had to turn myself into a dog trainer, which I think was a big part of it. But, she's highly trained. She's got great recall and voice control, and she's great off leash, which has taken a lot of work and time and consistency and effort. But I can let her be a dog. I can let her run into the pond, get muddy, and chase frogs, and I can say, let's go, and she comes right out of the pond. I don't have to go physically get her or throw a leash around her. I can trust her. That's the kind of, I can call her. It's about managing her arousal and knowing, every dog's a little bit different, but I've been able to achieve that with her. And I think a lot of people can pretty easily with the help of a balanced trainer that knows what they're doing and how to use the tools properly, like the e-collar and whatnot. And you're not rushing through a program, but as basically I ramble, I'm sorry for rambling, but basically species appropriate lifestyle is like, don't be a dick. Like, don't be upset if your dog brings a little bit of mud into the car or, drags a little bit of dirt in the house. Like, just clean it up. We don't want them like getting mud all over the floor and all over the walls and it's like everywhere, but a little bit, just clean it up, get a towel, clean it up, hose them down outside before you bring them in, whatever you got to do. But giving them that opportunity to go get muddy and be a dog is like, we talk about in oxytocin, the love hormone being released is anti-cancer. It's a feel-good love hormone. It's really important. I feel like not just the balanced community, but also in the positive only, we were having this talk before going live, Russ.
Yeah.
There's a lot of suppression and abuse, and abuse is a strong word, like you said earlier. You're absolutely right, but I don't want my dog being a robot. I don't, and I've evolved from where I've come from. I've evolved so much further than where I've come from, and some people just can't relate to dog owners. They don't let their dogs in the house. They don't let their dogs sleep in the bed or on the couch or whatever. They have their own detached place from their house, and it's a kennel, and it's just like their dogs always in place, maybe get 15 minutes to chuck it every day, and that's it, and eat the crappiest food, and you make a lot of money. I think that's so effed up. I think that we need to be allowing dogs to be more like their species, honoring them for their species, but responsibly. They need to have voice control if they're going to be off leash. Have to call. Don't let your dog run up to every dog or every person, because everyone's allowed to enjoy the great outdoors and not be bothered by your dog. If they want to pet them, if you're okay with it, then let them. But just don't assume that. You know what I mean? Like, be responsible for your dog, and you should be able to call them out of the water, say let's go, and they come out of the water, or stop chasing that squirrel, or you know what I mean.
I think there's a lot of it that's very. I don't know what that means, the 1 to 10. I think I'm not sure what's going on there. I think that there's a lot of it that's very case by case.
Yes.
When it comes to like dogs being on place or free roaming a house, dogs sleeping in bed, or I have 3 dogs. 2 of my dogs will sleep in their crates because that's what's best for them, no matter what. Like, that's what I know is best for them. My pit bull, she sleeps in my bed on most nights, unless like I just need my space and I throw her on the floor. But like she sleeps in my bed. She sleeps in my room. But it's from even my 3 dogs. I know that there's case by case. And I think that that's part of respecting the dog. The way I look at it is knowing what's going to be best, right? If I let Marley sleep out of his crate, and Marley's like my wild child, he's my bad dog, the one who got me into all of this.
Yeah.
And if I were to let him sleep out of his crate consistently, I know that I'm going to see an effect in the way he acts towards me during the day, which is in turn going to mess up our relationship, makes you resent your dog, which in turn leads to him not being able to do as much. So to me is a lot of, sorry?
Yeah, you're right. Case by case basis. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And like in general, I think that general statements in dog training or in dog stuff, or I guess in anything really, are very tough to make on everything, right? Because Mama Bear can sleep in my bed. It's not going to change anything. She can be off leash without an e-collar. It's not going to do anything. Marley, very different dog. And these are 2 dogs that are living in the same household with the same rules in general, right? Same owner, but they're different animals. And I know as their owner that it's my job to respect them both and give them what's right for each of them.
For sure. And I think there's a lot of, like Allie, for example, could never be crated. She'd broken out of crates, harmed herself, self-harm, which again, a lot of people don't believe me about the trauma that I've been through with this dog, breaking out of crates and coming home to hysteria everywhere. It's traumatic. I'll never forget it. But, she's been sleeping on my bed for 11 and a half years, and I can now crate her. No problem. Do I worry still? Yes, because of the past. I'm still holding on to the past of the trauma that I've been through.
That's
and
scary.
There's always going to be part of me that worries about her, but she now knows. I mean, the THC obviously helps, but I'm not using it as a crutch, and I'm not giving it to her every day. And when I do need to crate her, which I don't crate her often, but she can be crated, and I've worked very hard on that. And again, I credit John with a lot of that change in her with the crate is that, and I never did this with her, but I always wanted to, was I've seen some trainers put straw in the crate.
Yes,
so
I've heard about this.
Yeah,
I never tried it, but I've heard people really be successful with it.
Yeah, she loves to nest. I mean, she would, if she could be a farm dog, she would. She really would. She loves to dig holes and lay in a big old muddy watery hole. She loves it. So, but I would have loved to. I probably would try that with her in the future, but I think whatever works, every dog's different. And, but I come from, a few years ago, I'm not to sound bitter here, but my ex-girlfriend there's a lot of dog trainers out there that are controlling as fuck, narcissistic, and they just want these dogs to be little robots. And I'll never forget, my ex-girlfriend told me the reason why she loves dog training is because it took her mind off her own issues. She could focus, just, dance, puppet, dance, right?
Yeah.
And it's holy shit, really? Like, be careful who you send your dogs to, guys. And also, there's some not good people out there, so just be careful. And but she didn't want me to have Allie in the bed because it would make her so anxious, and if she let out the slightest whine, it'd be like an 80 on the remote, and it just like made her more, it's just suppressed and made, I don't want her to like spin to get, because usually you go after the fuse, not the explosion,
right?
But I don't want her to get out of control mindset wise and suffer mentally, but I also don't want to put her into this state of fear where it's like, if she even blinks, she's going to get corrected. And that's what I see a lot, is that dogs, like when you say no, they like jump out of their skin because they've been corrected so fucking harshly, and that's not okay. I think there needs to be a balance of yes and no, and I think there's a lot of things that people aren't transparent about, and I've seen, but anyway, we're getting off topic here a little bit.
Yeah. So one last thing that I'm very curious about from hanging out in your Facebook group is what is ozone therapy? Like you ozone, I don't know what the word is, ozonize. I don't know if that's a thing, but like your broccoli, like your pots, your dogs, yourself, and like I don't even know what this is. Like I'm just sitting there like, what is this guy doing with his everything? What is it?
It's just, ozone has 100 plus benefits, right? It kills bacteria, viruses. I just went to a new biological dentist today, I was telling you earlier, Russ, and he cleaned under the gums with ozone water, which it kills bacteria, right? And so it has many different uses. I'm drinking the water daily because it's antiviral, and I'm not saying that it cures COVID-19, but it's antiviral, so why the hell not? It cured Ebola in Sierra Leone. It cured Ebola. So if it can do that, who's to say it can't cure COVID-19? And I'm back in school now working with students who have really poor hygiene, and I'm dealing with feces and bodily fluids on a daily basis, getting this close to being bit, severe autism, by the way. And, I'm trying to
clarify. It's good to clarify that when you start talking about working in a school and there's feces and getting bit. It's like,
but it's just like, I drink ozone water every day. I give it to Allie. It's just really,
I'm very stupid with this stuff. What is ozone?
So it's bringing more oxygen to the body and microcirculation to the body. So it's not going to increase oxygen in the body. We all need, so everybody, like, what are the two things you feel like you need to survive? Most people are going to say, sorry, go ahead.
Oxygen and food.
Most people think food and water, right? Food and water. But it's really, number one, it's oxygen. If you can't breathe, you're going to die. You're going to die.
I think breathing comes first.
Right.
You could survive without food much longer than without oxygen.
But as we age, Russ, our bodies are less efficient at utilizing oxygen. So ozone is not increasing oxygen uptake; it's making the body better able to utilize the oxygen it has. Hyperbaric oxygen chamber, where you're in a chamber and your body's being flooded with oxygen, that's increasing the oxygen in the body. But ozone increases the oxygen efficiency in the body and microcirculation and more oxygen to the tissues, which is positive. Why wouldn't it be? But it can also kill pesticides and bacteria. So, which is why, like, even if I buy organic produce, I have a little tiny machine, costs me about $100, and I can stick the little ball into the water, and it starts bubbling the water with ozone. It kills off all the, even organic pesticides. It can kill it off. And so, it definitely is a useful thing. You never want to breathe ozone in. You can smell it if you crack open a window, run a fan, because it can damage your lungs. It can make you go into a coughing fit. I've done it.
Is it like concentrated oxygen?
Yes. Yeah, concentrated oxygen. You can adjust the dial just like with the e-collar. You can adjust the concentration of the oxygen, and you can give it in many forms. So you can give it via ozone, which is O2, the oxygen. I have a tank in my kitchen. It goes from oxygen O2 down the tube into the generator with making O3 ozone, and it just it's the stuff you smell after a rainstorm or a thunderstorm, and it's going to. Sorry, it's getting dark in here, but basically. You can give it rectally with a catheter, ozone gas. You can give, Allie's gotten bacterial infections before, UTIs, and I've given her very carefully. I've given her vaginal ozone gas, just not the trauma, and it stopped it dead in its tracks, whatever it was. I didn't have to go to the vet. Didn't have to put her on antibiotics. So it's just such a great tool, and I'm using it for her to support her body, her cellular health, and to help her age slower. It's delay aging. A lot of biohackers use it. I'm into that biohacking, and I want her to live freaking forever. It's not going to happen, but if that dog in Australia can live to be 30, why can't I get 15 out of her? Why can't I get 15 years? That would be my goal, 15 at least. But, she shouldn't be here. So that's why I'm so excited that she's thriving and she's 11 and a half, because she shouldn't be here.
That's pretty amazing. You've literally saved your dog's life and changed your life and your dog's life through it. I think it's a really, really cool story journey.
Like medically, she should have been a dog that had been put to sleep, but behaviorally, she should have been a dog that would have been surrendered.
Right. And on both ends of it, you've literally saved your dog's life. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really cool, really, really cool story and a really beautiful thing. And my favorite part of it is how it's made you so passionate about helping other people with it, which is the best thing that somebody can do with their own personal journey like this, is then to share it and help other people. And I think that's beautiful. Like, I relate to that aspect of it in terms of dog training, where I struggle with my dog and now I love helping other owners that are struggling. But you've taken the whole everything about it, because you struggled in more than just behaviorally with your dog, and you've really brought it into a whole new thing. Like, you talk about things that people have no idea. Like, I didn't know about I knew about THC and I knew about raw food and CBD. Those things I knew about before ever finding your group. But like poop eating, I just thought there's something wrong with this dog, right? Ozone, I literally had no idea what that stuff was. And I think it's fascinating because there's so much more out there that isn't being spoken about. And like, I barely even know anything. I wrote down a ton of notes from everything you're talking about, so I can go check these things out.
Everyone's busy, Russ, but just committing yourself to 5 minutes of research a day, learn something new, just be a student for life. I like to learn something new every day, whether it's for me or for her, or like I'm big into, my friends like John, and they all know that I love mushroom foraging. Like I'm currently, got my tincture here. This is a reishi mushroom and turkey tails that I found locally here, but the reishi I found in the Berkshire Mountains, and I dried them and I put them in a jar of grain alcohol, and I'm going to make a dual extraction tincture for Allie and myself and any of my friends. This is going to be a lot of medicine. So yeah, I think just learning something new. Call me hippie, but I think that's. I
feel like you probably know who Paul Stamets is.
Yes.
Yeah. As soon as you pulled out the mushrooms like that, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I was like, all right, this guy definitely knows who that is. And a lot of people who I talk to don't know who that is. So
I started by learning. Everyone's always like, are you afraid you're going to pick the wrong mushroom and kill yourself and your dog? But no, turkey tail is pretty easy to identify. Right. Reishi is pretty easy. So there's certain mushrooms, like the basic beginner foraging mushrooms that you can learn about. And, I spent a lot of time not even picking anything, just going into the woods with Allie, and I'm taking photos of things, of the mushrooms, bringing it back home, identifying them before I'd ever make something that I'm going to put in my body or hers.
Right, definitely. It's definitely a big risk. It's not like someone should just go out and start picking the mushrooms off their front lawn and making a tincture. Like, it's a serious thing to it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're going to wrap this up, but let's leave it with this. Let people know how they can get in touch with you, because you spoke about a lot of things. So there's Allie's Canine Crew is the Facebook page. How can dog owners who want to speak to you about the cannabis oil, how do they get in touch with you for that?
Just message me on Facebook. I don't know, through this, are they able to see my personal page?
Yeah, I tagged you in it, and I also put it in the comments so that people can find it. So it's Peter Ciancarelly.
Message me. Go to kingharvest.org, www.kingharvest.org. If you have a dog and you're looking for this stuff, or you know a dog that could benefit from it, just reach out. I mean, if anyone that reaches out to us with a dog, they're going to be directed to me anyway. So you can just reach out to me directly. It'd be easier. And we'll, no obligation. We'll talk to you about how this can help. Let me show you really quickly. This is one of the product. This is an old. It is now has a label on it. For example, like now they look like this.
Okay.
They have labels, but this was back in the day when it was not labeled. But it's it's the tincture, and you just it's. Oh, I don't want to put it on my laptop. I'm just spilling everything on my laptop tonight. But yeah, if you have
your laptop's gonna go to sleep.
I know. Just but yeah, just reach out to me. We'll talk.
All right, cool. I really appreciate this conversation. It was fascinating. I have my notes. I'm gonna check out all the websites you spoke about and start my research, because there's a lot to learn about on my end. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the time and sharing all of your information. Like, I encourage everybody to go join the Facebook page, and I'm not pushing Peter for any reason other than that his information is really interesting. You could learn a lot of new things, and just go have an open mind, because I think as a dog owner, not even a dog trainer, but as a dog owner, I know there's so much I don't know about what I could be doing for my dogs to better their lives. And there's definitely a lot of information on that Facebook group. So go join it, guys.
I appreciate that, Russ. And I really think it's wonderful that you're doing a podcast like this, where you can have guests on, and like you said before, that you only have people on that you want to talk to and you enjoy their company with, and you want people to learn alongside with you. So I think it's wonderful. I also have a podcast with my integrative veterinarian, a video podcast with my vet, Dr. Margot Roman, who is a pioneer in the industry, the fecal transplant. So we do Q&As a couple times a month. We do focused lives on different subjects like heart.
In the group, right?
What?
You share the videos in the group, right?
In the group, sometimes on my personal page.
Okay.
We did a video a few weeks ago on heartworm, and then the one we just did recently last week was on diagnosing and managing so pancreatitis, and then diagnosing and managing exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which is the inability to process, digest, and utilize your food. So animals that you get in with anxiety, that their ribs are like that, that EPI or pancreas insufficiency. So thanks everybody for the nice words of comment. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody who watched, all the awesome comments. This was a really fascinating, fun conversation. I hope to talk to you about this stuff a whole lot more, because I have a lot that I want to learn about it as well. So thank you all. Y'all have an awesome night, and stay kind.
Thanks. Bye. Take care. Bye.